All right, guys. So this video is going to focus on how do we determine or how do we find the inverse of a function. So we're going to go through 3 examples on working on how to find the inverse of a function. So we're going to start with example A. So example A says f of x is equal to 3x plus 2. The first step in finding the inverse of a function is to replace f of x with y. So f of x equals y. They're the same thing. When you have an equation that says y is equal to 3x plus 2, it's the same thing as saying f of x is equal to 3x plus 2. F of x just refers to your y. So we're going to take this f of x and do y is equal to 3x plus 2. Step 2 in finding the inverse of a function is to switch x and y. So where your y is, put x. Where your x is, put y. Alright, so take f of x, switch it to y, and then switch your x and your y. Which brings you to step 3, solve for y. So I need to solve this equation for y. If I'm solving this equation for y, I need to get rid of this 2, so I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. That on the right-hand side, I'm going to be left with 3y. On the left-hand side, I'll be left with x minus 2. In order to get y completely by itself, we need to divide out the coefficient. So we're dividing both sides by 3. 3 will cancel on the right-hand side, leaving us with y. On the left-hand side, we have x minus 2 divided by 3. We have it solved for y. So step 4, last and final step, is to replace y with f of x. So we switched f of x to y in the beginning. Now we are going to switch it back. So we have x minus 2 over 3 is equal to f of x. So this is the inverse of the function. So the inverse is equal to x minus 2 over 3, for example A. So let's do the same exact thing with example B. Alright, so starting with example B, the first thing we're going to do is replace y with the f of x here, or I'm sorry, we're going to get rid of the f of x and replace it with y. Step 2, we are switching x and y. So this y here now becomes x, and then this x over here is now y. Step 3, solve for y. So if I'm solving for y, I need to get rid of this exponent of a 5. The way that you get rid of an exponent of a 5 is by taking the 5th root of it. But what we do to one side, we must do to the other side. So we also have to take the 5th root of the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the 5th root and the 5 will cancel, leaving us with y plus 4. On the left-hand side, we now have the 5th root of x. Y is almost completely by itself. All we have to do is get rid of this 4. Since it's a positive 4, we do subtract 4 on both sides. On the right-hand side, that'll leave us with y. On the left-hand side, we're left with the 5th root of x minus 4. Last step, take that y and now replace it with f of x. And you now have the inverse of your function. So the inverse of function B is the 5th root of x minus 4. Continuing on with example C. So I have example C right over here. So step 1, get rid of f of x and plug in a y for it. Step 2, switch your x and your y. So this y here is now an x. And every x over here on the right-hand side will now be a y. So now we need to solve for y. So this one's going to have just a little bit more work involved here since we do have 2 y's on the right-hand side. But this is how this is going to work. So the first thing we need to do is multiply by the denominator. Our denominator is y minus 1. So we are going to multiply both sides by y minus 1. On the right-hand side, y minus 1 cancels with y minus 1. On the left-hand side, so let's see, let's just drop all this down. We have y minus 1 times x is equal to 3y plus 2. Let's go ahead and multiply out the left-hand side. So that means it's going to be x times the minus 1, x times the y. So just use distributive property to go ahead and multiply that out. that gives you xy minus x when we multiply that out. So x times the y is xy. Drop down your minus sign. X times 1 is x. And just go ahead and drop down the right-hand side. So let me go ahead and rewrite this up here just so we have room to work with. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do some rearranging here. So what I want to do is I want everything that has a y on the left-hand side, everything else on the right-hand side. So this 3y, this positive 3y, I'm going to move it to the left-hand side by subtracting 3y on both sides. So it gets rid of it on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, I'll now have xy minus 3y minus x. Now this minus x hanging out over here on the left side, I want to move that to the right-hand side since it doesn't have a y. So I'm going to add that to the right-hand side. Negative x plus x cancels, so it leaves me with xy minus 3y is equal to 2 plus x. The reason why I want everything with y on the left-hand side is because now I can do a little bit of factoring here. Each one of these terms has a y in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that y out. And when I factor that y out, so again, it's like dividing it out. The y's cancel, leaving us with x, minus the y's cancel, leaving us with 3. And then drop down the right-hand side. What this allows me to do is it splits up the y with everything else. So now if I want to get y completely by itself, now all I have to do is divide both sides by the x minus 3. On the left-hand side, x minus 3 cancels with x minus 3, leaving me with y. And on the right-hand side, I had 2 plus x over x minus 3. The only thing left to do here is instead of y, go ahead and switch that with an f of x is equal to 2 plus x over x minus 3. So hopefully you can see that there. Otherwise, that means the inverse of example C here is equal to 2 plus x over the x minus 3. Otherwise, that's how you find the inverse of a function. That's it for this video.